Did you know that if Wayne Gretzky never scored a goal, he would still be the all-time points leader in the NHL? That is absolutely insane. Man Hour Nation, rise up.
Are you ready for the best damn radio show on the planet? Man Hour Nation, rise up.
You know on the beat every time, no. I would like to personally welcome you to Man Hour After Dark. Say that while I bring you the host, Mike, Buck, and Cone. You know who's coming to the stage. Sports talk than what you about to hear right here. I second that.
Go. You know that it's us when we talking about sports. Giving you facts on the field to the court. Tune in, we need the support. 1 hour too short, then listen some more. On all your stations, not dropping no music. Starts like Adidas, but Nike just do it. Down 4 in the 4th, we go for the win. Michael 2 seconds, we taking it in. Buck, Mike, and Combs, you know what's going on. Man, now we're After Dark, no LA, we the big spark. No 4th and inches, won't cut short. Got the best talking, it's all sports. Buzzing more than buzz beaters. We coming live all through your speakers, go.
And welcome to the best damn sports radio show on the planet. This is Man Hour, and I'm your host, BC Beastie Brandon Combs, coming to you live on this Monday night, college football championship Monday night. If you guys have not done so yet, please click like, share, and subscribe on whichever platform you are watching us, whether it's Facebook, whether it is YouTube. If you are on Roku TV and you like what you see, you can head over to youtube.com/Man Hour. Or if you miss any part of the show, you can catch us on any podcast form. Also on youtube.com/Man Hour. You can subscribe for as little as $2.99 a month. Become a member of Man Hour Nation. If you are a member of at least $5.99 a month, $5.99 a month, you are eligible. You are eligible to be a part of Man Hour in Vegas during the draft. We are taking a trip. We are picking one of our listeners to go with us to Las Vegas during the NFL draft. A lot of crazy stuff going on in the NFL we need to talk about. We're going to talk about tonight for sure. But once you're a member, head on over to manhourradio.com. Click on the merchandise tab. Get yourself some hot Man Hour gear. We have hats, we have shirts, we have hoodies, we have joggers, phone cases, much, much more. And now that I've tried to pay the bills, we've got a great show lined up. We're going to talk all about that Sunday night football game. We are going to talk about Black Monday in the NFL. The Bears fired Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, baby. And then George McCaskey took the stage and had his press conference, and I wasn't as happy as I was prior to his press conference. But I digress. We're also going to get into some playoff football talk, and we'll finish the night off with a little bit of baseball talk, as I usually like to do. A couple lists came out, like best Hall of Famer or best player at each position to not be in the Hall of Fame. I've got some gripes with ESPN on this list, but we'll get to all that later. Alpha Rob, I see you in the comments. Drew, what's going on, buddy? Buck, I see you. Hope you're having a hell of a time at work. Hopefully I can keep you entertained for the next 2 hours by myself. For the next 2 hours. Hopefully I can keep you entertained. I have reached out to a couple of people trying to see if maybe they want to join the show, do a little interview. But for now, I've got Drew, I've got Alpha Rob, I've got Buck. At some point, I'm sure Michelle will chime in. She is right now at Aubrey's volleyball game, which I am missing, so that I can bring you guys the best damn sports radio show on the planet. But let's dive right into it. Sunday night football. Man, was that everything we could have hoped for? There's a lot of craziness on Sunday Night Football. A lot of craziness. The Raiders looked like they were going to run away with it. There's about 4 minutes to go. And then all hell broke loose. The Los Angeles Rams converted. I'm sorry. Not the Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Chargers converted on 7 straight plays that would have ended their season. 4th downs, field goals, everything above. And Sunday Night Football was insane. And then all hell broke loose, and everybody's like, oh my God, is it really going to happen? Are they tied? They're going into overtime. They're playing back and forth. Then the Raiders get the ball with what? I don't know, about 4 minutes to go, 3 minutes to go. And they're moving the ball. They get to about half field. There's about a minute and a half to go. And they're still running the ball. They get to about the 45, and it looks like they're still just running down the clock. Like they're going to be content with maybe running it down to about 2 or 3 seconds and attempting a crazy long field goal. And if they make it, hey, great. They win and they're in the playoffs. Or if they miss it, hey, great. They tie and they're in the playoffs. And they let the Chargers in too. And then Brandon Staley calls a timeout. With about 34 seconds to go, calls a timeout. And the Raiders weren't even ready to run a play. And nobody in the building can believe they called the timeout. What were you thinking in that spot? And I know people are, like I see Alpha Rob says, I can't believe the Chargers thought the Raiders were going to let them in. The Raiders were going to let them in, Rob. The Raiders absolutely were going to let them into the playoffs. They were running the ball. They weren't hurrying up to the line of scrimmage. They weren't trying to move it. They were on the 45-yard line with like 30. I can't remember the exact time, but it was like 34 seconds to go. And they weren't even at the line of scrimmage when the Chargers called the timeout. They were going to run that down. They were going to try a long field goal. They were okay with trying a long field goal. And instead, Brandon Staley calls that timeout. And even after the game, when asked about it, they asked Derek Carr, did that timeout change your strategy? And he says, absolutely. Absolutely it did. He did say that they didn't want to tie, but they weren't playing for what they were going to run the ball again. They weren't going to pass in that situation. They were going to run the ball up the middle. And they were going to be okay if they missed a long field goal because they still were in the playoffs no matter what. The Las Vegas Raiders had zero reason to try to move the ball up the field at that point. Zero reason. They were in the playoffs either way. If they ran down the clock and they didn't score, they were still in the playoffs no matter what. The Raiders were going to allow the Los Angeles Chargers back into the playoffs. And I don't know what Brandon Staley was thinking. Why call that timeout there? For what? It made no sense. Even if you do stop them there on 3rd down and you call your other timeout and they make the field goal, you're going to have about 8 seconds to go. By the time they kick it off and give you the ball back, you're going to have about 8 seconds to go. You're going to have one shot downfield. It made no sense to waste your time out there. It made no sense to call that. Everybody knew what the Raiders were doing. But now, Brandon Staley doesn't look so. There's a lot of questionable calls by Brandon Staley in that game. A lot of questionable calls. And look, the Chargers, they fought. They battled. They came back, 4 minutes to go, down by 2 scores, down by 15 points. Even Michelle looked at me and she goes, well, this one's over. And she's the J. If you ever want your team to make a comeback, if you ever want your team to mount a comeback, just text Michelle the score and ask her to say that the game is over. Because she did it to me to Notre Dame a couple weeks ago. Notre Dame had that 28-7 lead. She goes, oh, well, this one's over. Notre Dame ultimately lost that bowl game. And she did it last night. It was a 29-14 game, I believe, at the time. Something like that. They were down by 15 points. I can't remember the exact score, but I know Chargers were down by 15 points with 4 minutes to go, and they come back and they tie the game. Score 15 points, tie it, send it to overtime. Both teams go back and forth. Nothing's happening. They're in overtime, and the Raiders are about to allow this to go to a tie. So, a lot of conspiracy theorists out there. And look, I don't think that them playing to a tie is a conspiracy, right? Because them playing to a tie at that point in the game, look, they were playing their butts off up until then. That 15-point erase deficit, look, the Raiders didn't let that happen. They were trying to stop the Chargers. The Chargers just found a way to tie the game. The Raiders had zero motivation, no reason, unless the clock was stopped for them, to try to win that game at that point. They were in the playoffs no matter what. They were in the playoffs no matter what. And if they tried something crazy and they fumble the ball and they give up a pick six or they fumble and there's a recovery for a touchdown, that lowers their chances. So they had no reason to run quick plays, and they weren't trying to. And then Brandon Staley called the timeout. I think he screwed his own team. I think it was a bad timeout call. Bad timeout call. What's going on, Danny Buckheister? I see you out there. Buck Sisters in the chat. Says, how many games went in overtime yesterday? 3? There were a lot. I mean, look, the Ravens and Steelers went into overtime. Ravens and Steelers were fighting for a playoff spot because the Colts inexplicably lost to the Jaguars. They went in overtime fighting for a playoff spot. Trying to think off the top of my head what other games yesterday went into overtime. I believe it was I'm trying to think. Did the Titans and Texans go to overtime? I know they played a close game. I know the Niners and Rams went to overtime. Yeah, the Chargers and Raiders went to overtime, and the Steelers and so yeah, maybe you're right, Danny. It was 3. It was 3. That 49ers Rams game was a battle. That was a battle. The 49ers versus Rams was like, look, the 49ers needed that game because the New Orleans Saints went out and took care of business. If the Niners lose that game, as they were down 17-0, and the Rams let them come back. That, I mean, a 6-game winning streak now against the Rams, too, for the 49ers. And I agree, Danny. It definitely was a wild day of watching football. I was never more excited than for a team that I don't care about anyway, than I was for when the Jaguars beat the Colts. When the Jaguars beat the Colts, it's like, oh my God, here we go. Oh my God, here we go. There's about to be chaos. And I root for chaos all the time. All the time, I root for chaos. But this was definitely something that was great for the NFL and for ratings and for the final game of the season to determine a playoff spot to end the way that it did was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Danny says, watching the Rams drive me nuts. They come out killing it, then always let the team come back. They do. The Rams can score with the best of them. Matthew Stafford, the fact that the guy is out of Detroit now is going to be astounding for his career. He's going to be able to do big things in Sean McVay's offense. He's going to be able to do big things with what the Rams provide. But they do. The Rams tend to take their foot off the gas a lot. And that hurts them a lot. I think it's going to bite them in the butts in the playoffs. They're not going. I don't believe that the Rams are going to host a Super Bowl. I don't think they're going to be the home team. They're going to host it because it's in their stadium, but they're not going to play in it as a home team. I don't even think they're going to beat the Cardinals in the first week of the playoffs in a wild card round. I think that the Cardinals are going to beat the Rams, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I definitely think that the Rams they struggle at home. They're not very good at home at all. And they take their foot off the gas. You're absolutely right, Danny. So I don't think that they're going to the Super Bowl. I don't think that the Rams are one of those teams. I don't blame you for getting frustrated watching the Rams, especially if you're a Rams fan. Danny, are you a Rams fan? I know your brother's a Chiefs fan. I'm pretty sure you're probably a Chiefs fan too, but I could be wrong. Let me know. I'm going to get to my first break, and then when I come back and get to some of the comments that are floating through, I see Danny's in the chat, Alpha Rob's in the chat, Buck's in the chat. We've got Drew in the chat. So, guys, chime in. I'm going to need all the help I can get solo for 2 hours. Stay with me. Be back. 2 minutes. what is going on? It's your boy BC Beastie Brandon Combs coming back. Man hour, solo, 2 hours. It's crazy. Got some stuff going on in the chat, though. Danny says she is a Chiefs fan, but she likes Matt Stafford. Do you like Matt Stafford for the same reason Michelle likes Rob Gronkowski? Do you like Matt Stafford, the football player? Or do you like Matt Stafford, the body, Danny? Let me know. I'm willing to guess it might be the football player. He's not that bad. Lewis Chesney says, cool. Not sure what's cool, but hey, I'll take it. Hopefully you like it. Lewis, thanks for chiming in here on Facebook. Appreciate it. Lewis says, I like Goff. I've seen enough of Goff to know that he's not very good. And so I'm not sold on Jared Goff. I saw what he was in LA, even with all the weapons he had. And then I seen what he was in Detroit, and Goff just isn't that guy for me. But I'm glad you like him. I mean, hey, I see in your profile that you are a Titans fan. So, maybe you will have some success here in the playoffs, but I wouldn't wish Goff on my worst enemy. Justin Payton going on. What's going on, buddy? Thanks for joining the chat. Appreciate you, Justin. Says, how far will the Bengals make it in the playoffs? Look, the Bengals are the real deal. Bengals are the real deal. How far will they go? I think they'll beat the Raiders. And we'll get to all that in a little bit here. We're going to get into some playoff talk. But I'll tell you how far I think they're going to go once we get there. Danny says Rams made a deal with the devil for their team. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Danny. I thought they made a great deal for their team by going and getting Matt Stafford. So I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. But just let me know. What do you mean by they made a deal with the devil? Lewis Chesney says, Stan ripped off St. Louis. They got the Raiders first round, which is where the Bengals curse started at the Bo Jackson game. Think Super Bowl in the next 2 years. Look, the Bengals, and we've said this on the show, Justin, so if this is your first time chiming in, welcome. Welcome to Man Hour Nation. Feel free to click that like button, click subscribe, become a member of Man Hour Nation, all that other good stuff. We appreciate the support. Look, I think the Bengals are the real deal. Buck likes to go in on them. Buck likes to get their fans all stirred up and go at it. Buck also picked the Lions to win 11 games. So that'll tell you all you need to know about Buck. Right, Buck? I know you're in the chat still. But I think that the Bengals can go pretty damn far. I like the Bengals. I think Joe Burrow is the MVP. I would vote for Joe Burrow right now as the MVP. He's got better numbers than Tom Brady. He's got equivalent numbers to Aaron Rodgers. And he did it with the Cincinnati Bengals, which to me is just more impressive than anything that Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady has done this year. I think the Bengals are set up for a great future. I think they're going to be the real deal. I think they're going to be the leaders of the North for a long time. They're at least going to be fighting in that very good division, that very strong division. Maybe Baltimore gets rid of John Harbaugh this postseason. He looks bored as a head coach. A lot of talk about him possibly moving up into a GM role. I know a team was looking for a GM. So John Harbaugh might be out of Baltimore. And then you look at, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. Who knows what the Cleveland Browns are going to be? Are they going to extend Baker a contract? You don't know. So I think the Bengals are going to be good for a long time. Justin says, I'll always go against whatever Buck says. Been like that semi-pro football days. Justin, I'm with you. I always go against what Buck says, too, for the most part. He gets me going, and he knows how to push buttons. Danny says, don't do my bro like that. But see, look, Danny, your brother picked the Lions to win 11 games. He did it last year, too. Said they were going to win the division last year. Said they were going to win the division this year. Probably going to pick them to win the division last year. Your brother also says Lamar Jackson's trash. Your brother also says, all sorts of crazy things. He tells me that, he's got Carson Wentz as a top 15 quarterback in the league, which I think he's crazy. But your brother just says crazy stuff. I love your brother, but he just says crazy stuff. So let's get into it. It was Black Monday. And the Bears fired Nagy and Pace. And we all know that I've been clamoring for that since before the end of last year. They finally listened. And I was happy. Man, I was happy. And then George McCaskey had his interview. And George McCaskey said that Ted Phillips was still going to have say in who the new GM is. And I started thinking to myself, right? George McCaskey, Ted Phillips, those are the guys that have been hiring the GMs. Ted Phillips has been with the team since 1997, I believe, 98, somewhere in that time frame. George McCaskey, obviously, born into owning the Bears. And they've done a terrible job of hiring over the last 20 plus years. There's going to be no restructuring of the front office. There's going to be no restructuring of who it is, other than the fact that they're bringing Bill Polian, and they're also bringing their director of diversity in there as well. I can't remember her name, but they're going to be in on the interviews, and they're going to take Bill Polian's advice. They're going to take her advice. But ultimately, the decision is going to be up to Ted Phillips and George McCaskey. And now the GM is going to report to George McCaskey as opposed to Ted Phillips, because he's going to direct the lead into the new stadium for the Chicago Bears. And I have no faith that they're going to get it right. No faith that they're going to get it right this time. Why should I? I mean, for a split second today, I was like, wow, the Bears ownership might actually be listening to their fans. There's no surprise when they fired Matt Nagy. No surprise whatsoever. But they hadn't announced that they had fired Ryan Pace until after. And then once they announced that they fired Ryan Pace, I was like, wow, maybe they get it. Maybe they're listening. And then George McCaskey says that stuff. And quite frankly, they don't get it. They don't get it. Look, we got guys like Louis Riddick, a brilliant football guy who is available. There's talk about John Harbaugh wanting to be a GM. I think that would be a great hire. I think he's got the resources to bring in the right head coach. I think he's got the resources to bring in the right offensive coordinators. I think he's got the resources to turn this whole thing around. But why would you want to come work for this organization that can't seem to get anything right? And then in his interview, George McCaskey calls out Olin Kreutz, one of the most beloved Bears figures, and denies a report that he didn't offer Olin Kreutz $15 an hour to be the Bears head coach, when many people have corroborated that story that Olin Kreutz has talked about. A slap in the face that looks really, really bad on George McCaskey, by the way. Look, I don't think that the Bears are going to get it right. I have no faith they're going to get it right. I shouldn't have any faith that they're going to get it right because they've never gotten it right. It's what the Chicago Bears do. But they're on the phones. They're trying to get a new GM. They're trying to go ahead and get a head coach after they get their new GM. And hopefully, just hopefully, accidentally, they stumble around the right person. They stumble upon the right person and they say, you know what? This is our guy. And whoever that may be, they bring him in and he hires the right head coach who has the ability. Now, it doesn't have to be an offensive-minded head coach, right? A lot of people are like, oh, well, you could go out and get Eric Bieniemy, which is my number one choice. That's who I want the most, is Eric Bieniemy as the head coach, because I think he'd do a fantastic job with this offense. I think he'd do a fantastic job with developing Justin Fields. But if you don't get an offensive-minded head coach, if you don't go out and you don't interview, the guys, what's his face there out of New England, if you don't go out and you can get somebody who is defensive-minded to be your head coach, but has enough knowledge and enough clout in the league to bring along the right offensive-minded offensive coordinator, right? Like you can have a defensive-minded head coach. And so I wouldn't mind to see, look, Brian Flores got fired in Miami today. Shock to me. Miami's going to regret that. I'll just tell you, right, this team was playing well under Brian Flores. Granted, they missed the playoffs, but towards the end of the season, after they're done dealing with all the injuries, they were playing well down the stretch. And to fire him, look, I would love to see Brian Flores in Chicago as a head coach. That would be a great hire to me. And he could bring along an offensive-minded guy that could establish a relationship with Justin Fields and develop him and develop this offense around him. But that's what they need. They need to develop the offense around Justin Fields and not develop Justin Fields around the offense, which is what Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy were trying to do. So that's what they need to do there. A couple of comments chiming in. Justin Payton says, Buck, you need some Skyline chili in your life. Justin Payton, nobody needs Skyline chili in their life, man. Nobody. And this coming from a guy who loves White Castle burgers. That Skyline chili stuff will rot your insides. That Skyline chili stuff is terrible. Unbelievable. You do not need Skyline chili in your life. Buck, do not listen to him. Your wife will kick you out of the house for at least a week if you eat a bowl of Skyline chili. Danny says, I wish the Bears would be good again. I'm with you, Danny. God, I'm with you. People talk about Ryan Pace and, look, Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, they're both good guys. I wish them nothing but luck. I just don't want them to be my head coach or my GM anymore. Ryan Pace had 7 years as the GM. 7 years. And I saw a thank you earlier on a Bears Twitter feed to Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. Thank you. Thank you for what? Ryan Pace in 7 years as GM had one winning season. One. 2 playoff appearances because they made the playoffs at 8-8 in 2020. 1 above 500 season. That's terrible as a GM. Justin Page says, cold and windy in Chi-Town. Nobody wants to go there. This coming from a guy who's all about Cincinnati. Just kidding. Just kidding. At least it's not Cleveland. At least it's not Cleveland. People don't even really know where Cincinnati's at. That's all right. I digress. Alpha Rob says, Flores did it to himself when they started 1-7. They were dealing with a ton of injuries, Alpha Rob. They were dealing with so many injuries. It was unbelievable. They lost Tua. They lost their starting quarterback. That's you can't put that on a head coach. And look at what they were doing down the stretch. Even if they were 1-7, look what once they got healthy, look at the run that they made. Damn near made the playoffs. Brian Flores didn't deserve to be out in Miami. It was a bad fire by Miami. They're going to regret that. Unless they go out and get Jim Harbaugh, but the owner has already come out and dispelled those rumors. Said they're not going after Jim Harbaugh. I don't think Flores did it to himself. I think the injury bug got to him. Bears want to talk to Leslie Frazier. I'm all right with that. I just want make sure you interview Louis Riddick. Make sure you interview, if he wants to interview for it, John Harbaugh. Make sure you interview football people, not your friends, not the Ted Phillips and the Ryan Paces of the world. Football-minded people is what this organization needs, and that's what they've been lacking. Louis Riddick is going to be a phenomenal GM once he gets a chance. Phenomenal GM. Great football mind. We already know John Harbaugh is a good football mind. I just think he's bored as a head coach. He doesn't look happy as a head coach. I think he was playing around when he decided to go for 2 twice. Trying to get cute. That's not John Harbaugh football. That's not his mentality. John Harbaugh, I don't disagree with the rumors. I think that John Harbaugh might want to be a GM. Buck says, what's more overrated than Matthew Stafford? Skyline Chili and White Castle. And Buck's takes. Those are pretty overrated too. Especially when it comes to predicting the Lions' record. Danny says, I like White Castle, but I only get it when I go see Buck. Look, I love White Castle. I love it. I can eat White Castle all the time. As a matter of fact, when I get off the show tonight, I got some double cheeseburgers upstairs waiting on me. The problem with White Castle is the aftermath of White Castle. And I don't care who you are. I don't care how young you are, how old you are, how manly you are, how cute you are. The ungodliness that comes out of you after eating White Castle, that's what will scare you away. And Skyline Chili might be the only thing that's worse than that. Complaining about GMs. Have you not seen the Bengals GM? Look, the Bengals are doing good things right now. They finally got it right. Bengals finally got it right. I'm hopeful I get to see the Bears get it right for once. I don't believe they will. They haven't shown me anything that shows that they will. But I don't believe that the Bears will get this right. I have zero faith in the Chicago Bears. You know, Mike Zimmer's out in Minnesota. I don't want Mike Zimmer being my head coach, but I think Mike Zimmer would be all right as a coordinator somewhere. I don't like Mike Zimmer. I'm not a big fan. He doesn't know how to run an offense. I think he's the same thing that the Bears just fired, so there's no reason to even interview Mike Zimmer for your head coaching position. That's just my take on him. Buck says Flores will end up back in New England. I disagree. I think Flores gets another head coaching gig right away. I don't think they wait. Another guy I think gets a coaching position right away is Vic Fangio. And he got a raw deal in Denver. Vic Fangio had a Denver team that had no quarterback. No quarterback. And was in the playoff hunt right up until week 17. That team was doing good things, and if you give that guy a quarterback, I think Vic Fangio figures something out. And what the Broncos did was put the best defensive coordinator out there back on the market. I think Vic Fangio might get another head coaching job right away. Justin says this is the best Miami team in forever. It's crazy they fired him. 2 years was not enough to turn that program around. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Justin. Completely agree with you. I don't agree with you on Skyline Chili, but I agree with you on this. This was the best Miami team in forever. This was a team, and a big part of that was Brian Flores. The biggest part of that was Brian Flores. And to fire him, to let him go, that doesn't make much sense to me. See, Danny, if you're still on right now, this is why I go at your brother. This is why I talk shit to your brother all the time. Comments like this. I said it a few weeks ago. Jason Garrett to Chicago. You should shut your mouth and wash it out with soap. Plain and simple. Talk about White Castle burgers all you want, but you can never talk down on White Castle Big Red. Oh, God. Buck says White Castle isn't in Kansas. Danny says she's jealous. All right, so Danny says, stop being a lint liquor, Buck. I agree. Stop being a lint liquor. Danny says, still don't have a quarterback. Drew Lock was doing the most. Look, Drew Lock had a great game yesterday. But that's all he had. He had a great game. Look at his season. Look at the numbers. Drew Lock is... He's... Look, if you can develop Drew Lock, you've got yourself something. But you got to be able to develop him. And Denver wasn't in rebuild mode just yet. And with Teddy Bridgewater in and out and injured, look, if they have a healthy Teddy Bridgewater, they're in the playoffs. They're in the playoffs. So, who else should be fired? You got, I believe, 6 openings came open today. I think there'll probably be a couple more to follow throughout the course of the week. And then maybe you'll get some interest from some guys, and maybe a couple more will open up that we don't see coming. I think it's time for Seattle to move on from... God, his name's going to escape me now. Pete Carroll. There you go. Sorry. Had a picture of his face for a second. But I think the Seahawks should move on from Pete Carroll. I think it's time. And he tries to get too cute. He's always been that guy. That's why they didn't win more Super Bowls. I think he's just running his course in Seattle. And I know Pete Carroll's a likable guy. He was a likable guy at USC. He was a likable guy through his first 5 or 6 years in Seattle. I think he's just worn out his welcome there. And I think it's time for them to move on from him. I don't see what he has left there in Seattle. I don't see what they are hanging on to for him there in Seattle. I would move on from him. Another head coach who should move on, and I've talked about him already, but it's John Harbaugh. I think John Harbaugh's time in Baltimore is really come to an end. And the reason why I don't think these two, it's Black Monday, these two will move on their own accord. They will allow these two to step down as opposed to be fired. And they will allow them to choose to do what they want to do, go where they want to go. Now, maybe Pete Carroll can even move up. Instead of a head coach, maybe Pete Carroll moves up into a GM spot or a president of football operations spot in Seattle. Same thing with John Harbaugh. Maybe he moves up in Baltimore. Or maybe they go somewhere else. But I think both of those guys' time as head coaches is done. I see Michelle out there. She says, "What's going on, man hour?" She said, "We won both games." That is awesome. Aubrey's 8th grade volleyball team. She's on the A team, as they call it. They were a few girls short. I believe they were only playing with 5 tonight. And they went out and won both games. That's awesome. Look, these girls kick butt, man. Aubrey is phenomenal at volleyball. She's a lot of fun to watch. I enjoy watching her. I missed the game tonight. It's the first game. This might be the first game I ever missed. Maybe I missed one more due to work or something, but I don't miss many games. But she is phenomenal at volleyball. Her friend Paige is very good. They got a lot of good girls on the team. Emily is a very good volleyball player. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch all season, provided they get to finish the season due to all the stuff going on with schools and COVID here in Chicago. But I digress. Danny says, Pete needs to find a nursing home. He does. Look, I don't know about a nursing home. I mean, I'm not going to do Pete Carroll like that because I do like Pete Carroll a lot. And I do think that he was a very good head coach. I do believe he took the Seattle Seahawks to places where they may not have gone if he was not the head coach. I think the Seahawks needed Pete Carroll as much as Pete Carroll needed the Seahawks. I just think that he's just overextended. He's overstayed his welcome. He's like that. You know, you get a family member who is just down and they just need help. And you're trying to get them back on their feet. So you give them a place to stay. And about 2 or 3 months in, you're just like, yeah, have you found a place yet? That's where I feel like the Seahawks are with Pete Carroll. It's just, it happens. You're just, look, you've overstayed. Look, I still want to see you get on your feet. So I'm willing to let you move up to president of operations. Or you can step down on your own accord. It's just time for us to get a new head coach. We need a new voice in the locker room. So that's where I'm at with Pete Carroll. But we're going to get to another break here as the chat is blowing up. Michelle says, I was right. It was the first game that I missed. It happens. It happens. I love my girl, though. I love watching her play volleyball. It's been a joy. Alpha Rob says, that's not happening this year. This year is an AFC champion. Ooh. Maybe because you're a Buffalo Bills fan. Are you predicting a Bills Super Bowl championship? That would be dangerous. That would be dangerous. I would not predict them to win it. I did pick the Bills and the Cardinals to be in the Super Bowl preseason. So I'm with you, Alpha Rob. Maybe they do go to the Super Bowl. I just don't. Look, there is so much parity as Danny chimes in and says, Bills aren't going to the Super Bowl. Sit down with laughing faces. There's so much parity in the NFL. It wouldn't surprise me to see the Bills in the Super Bowl. Bills are a very good football team. Great defense. And Josh Allen can get it done. Then you've got the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously, who are always there. But look, the Kansas City Chiefs are struggling to find themselves still. The Kansas City Chiefs offense does not play well versus good defenses. And they showed that with Denver in the last game of the season. Yes, they won. But they won on an interception. That offense did not generate a ton of points. And going up against good defenses in the playoffs and where you can't play well is just not the recipe that I think is going to lead them to another Super Bowl appearance. But we're going to get into all that when we get back. We're going to talk some playoff football. So stay with me. We'll be back. 2 minutes. All right, we are back as the chat is blowing up. Danny says, Justin says, KC all day. Our rookie wide receiver had more receiving yards than your quarterback had passing yards. They're going back and forth with Alpha Rob. Number one defense. Now they have the run game going. Alpha Rob said the Bills will put the Chiefs out of their misery. Danny says the Chiefs will be in the AFC Championship Super Bowl, hopefully. I disagree, Danny. I disagree. I don't think that the Chiefs are going to the AFC Championship. As a matter of fact, I might be upsetting you with this next statement. But they're about to play Big Ben and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we already said they don't play well versus good defenses. And the Pittsburgh Steelers just seem to find a way to keep Ben Roethlisberger's career going. And I see you, Buck, there in the comments. I think the Steelers walk into Kansas City, and I think they leave Kansas City with a date in the divisional round. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to upset the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to win this game. I think the defense is going to put a stranglehold on the Kansas City offense. I don't think Kansas City scores more than 20 points. And I think the Steelers win a close one. Something like 23-20, 25-20. somewhere around there. As we got R Garcia 9999999999 says, yo, what's going on, R Garcia? We're getting into some playoff football talk here. Yeah, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers find a way to extend Ben Roethlisberger's career. I think they go into Kansas City. That is the upset of the weekend. I think the Chiefs beat the Steelers. Alpha Rob says that's a hot take. Alpha Rob, I'm about to make you mad too. The New England Patriots versus the Buffalo Bills. I'm just kidding, Alpha Rob. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to make you mad. I picked the Buffalo Bills to be in the Super Bowl. I'm going to stick with that prediction. Look, I think the Buffalo Bills are on a course to make sure that the New England Patriots don't continue their streak of dominance. And I think that continues. I think that the one New England win over the Buffalo Bills was a fluke in a game where there was 50-degree or 50-mile-an-hour high winds. It was like 12 degrees outside. It was raining. It was just terrible conditions. And it was just a terrible situation for the Buffalo Bills. That's not going to happen this Sunday. Not quite sure what the weather outlook's just yet. I usually look at it on Thursdays. It's usually when they tend to be right about Saturdays. I don't think that the New England Patriots are going to beat the Buffalo Bills. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to win this game. I actually think they're going to win this game by at least 2 scores. Probably a 10-point game here for the Buffalo Bills. They find a way. They win this game something, I'll say 34-24. I'm going Buffalo Bills. Alpha Rep says Watt is a monster and Hayward in the middle. They wreak havoc. They wreak havoc. And I think that TJ Watt is going to be chasing down Patty Mahomes all game long. All game long. And she said they did it a couple weeks ago. Well, this isn't a couple weeks ago, Danny. She says Big Ben is done. No, he's not. He went into Baltimore and beat Baltimore to get into the playoffs. Look, I'm not saying it's impossible for Kansas City to beat Pittsburgh. I'm just saying with the way Pittsburgh's playing right now, with the heart that they're showing, with everything that they're doing, with Big Ben's last stand, I think they extended another week. And I think they find a way to beat Kansas City. R. Garcia said he's going to end up with the Texans. What you think? Who's going to end up with the Texans? Who? I don't know who you're talking about, but I don't know what the Texans are going to do. I know what they haven't done. I don't know what they're going to do, though. They're the Texans. I don't know if they're waiting to rebuild. I know they're probably trading Deshaun Watson this offseason because I think Davis Mills is the real deal. But I don't know who's going to end up with the Texans. So, yeah. So, I think that the Steelers beat Kansas City. And I think the Buffalo Bills beat the Patriots. Now we have the Raiders versus the Bengals. The Las Vegas Raiders versus the Cincinnati Houday Bengals. Look, Joe Burrow, to me, is the MVP of the league. Jamar Chase, hands down, the Rookie of the Year. These two guys are a force. And then you add in a guy like Joe Mixon who's been running crazy all season long. A pretty damn stout defense, a good offensive line. And you got a Raiders team that just doesn't quit. This Raiders team, look, I like Derek Carr. I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league. I like the things that he's done. But I don't think that's going to be enough this week. I think Cincinnati finds a way to win. And that might be the crazy stat of the day. I know I gave a different crazy stat of the day because that one was a little bit crazier. But there has never been a text message about a Bengals playoff victory. The last Bengals playoff victory was in 1991. The first text message was sent in 1992. Nobody has ever texted somebody about the fact that the Bengals win a playoff game until now. Until now. The Bengals win on Saturday. Justin's going to get to text somebody and say, hey, the Bengals won. Buck's going to get to text somebody and say, hey, the Bengals won. I'm going to get to text Buck and say, hey, the Chiefs lost, but hey, look, the Bengals won. I think that the Bengals are going to win their first playoff game since 1991. It's long overdue. 30 years in the making. Bengals move on to the divisional round. That's our first Saturday game. That's going to be a lot of fun. You get Raiders, Bengals, followed by Patriots and Bills on Saturday. That's some good playoff football. Saturday is going to be just as much fun to watch as Sunday is. And we get into Sunday. And we have the Eagles versus the Buccaneers. And the last time that the Eagles played the Buccaneers, was it week 6? Something like that. The Buccaneers beat the Eagles 28-22. 6-point game. But back then, that was a very different Eagles team than what they're about to face this week. And I said Steelers over the Chiefs was the upset of the weekend. A lot of people might think that this would be the upset of the weekend should the Eagles find a way to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As Justin says, I'm not texting anyone. I'll be in the jungle crying. Look, hey, Justin, I'm with you, man. Look, I'm a Cubs fan. I'm a Bears fan. I know all about disappointment and teams that make you cry when they finally do something. So I will feel good for people like you, Justin, who are there with their teams even when they're not good. Cincinnati Bengals fan base deserves a winner. Cincinnati Bengals fan base deserves this playoff victory. So I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you on Saturday. I'll be watching. I'll be thinking, hey, Justin right now is crying after they win that game. But we get to the Eagles Buccaneers. I said it before and I'm going to say it again. I don't bet against Tom Brady. I don't pick against Tom Brady. And I for damn sure don't do it in the playoffs. I just don't. It's very rare if I ever pick a Tom Brady-led team to lose in the postseason. And I'm not going to do it this week either. I know the Eagles have been playing well. I know they seem like that team of destiny like they did a couple years back when they beat a Tom Brady-led team in the Super Bowl. I just don't think Jalen Hurts is that guy. I think Jalen Hurts finds a way to let the Eagles fans down. I think Jalen Hurts finds a way to screw things up and throw a crucial interception. And I think that the Buccaneers win this game. I do think it's a close game. I'm going to go Bucs 27, Eagles 23. 4-point game here. Now we're on to the most 90s fan base matchup ever. Two fan bases that just can't stop living on their success in the 80s and 90s. The San Francisco 49ers versus Bucs Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, I said Bucs Dallas Cowboys. Comes on the show wearing cowboy gear, even though he's a Chiefs fan. Has Packers flag hanging in his background. But Buck is a Cowboys guy. Notably, the Cowboys are his NFC team. The San Francisco 49ers are just a team that just won't go away. Keep finding a way to win. Keep finding a way to do it. And as much as I like Dak Prescott, I tend to not trust him in huge games like this. I tend to not trust him to do the right thing, to make the right play, to have the right read, to call the right, option, to call, to do anything right in a big game. I have a hard time trusting Dak Prescott for some reason. But I trust him more than I trust Jimmy G. I trust him to show up more than I trust Jimmy G to show up. And as good as the San Francisco 49ers defense is, they are in Dallas. Dallas finds a way to win this game. Keeps Bucks' hopes alive for his Super Bowl prediction of the Dallas Cowboys. Till next week. But they do win this week. I'm going to say, hey, we got Javier in the chat. What's going on, Javier? But I'm going to say Dallas Cowboys win this game 34-20. 34-20. Dallas finds a way to do it. Dallas is just one of those teams. And Justin says, if you're a grown man and you root for the Cowboys, you'll tug a wanker. I don't disagree with you. He says that's only the Buck. No offense to any other Cowboys fans, just him. No, Cowboys fans love their 90s talk, right? I'm going with the Cowboys here. I just think that they have that potential to explode offensively. The 49ers tend to let a lot of teams score early and often before they finally settle in. And that's dangerous in Dallas. So that's why I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys here. I think they just get too big of a lead. They're able to put a couple points up in the second half. And then they win this one 34-20. Javier says, sad Monday for my coach. He's going to Chicago. Javier, I would be happy to see this man in Chicago. I would. I think that it would be a great hire for the Chicago Bears. I wouldn't be mad at it whatsoever. So now we get into the Monday night game. We got the Cardinals at the Rams. Monday night. See, I don't like the Monday night playoff. Talked about it a little bit yesterday with Buck before we had some technical difficulties. I see my guy Javier in the chat. Drew asked him where he's been. Javier says, Drew, working in hospitals. Damn, COVID is back. Look, Javier, thank you for being on the front lines with this stuff. I appreciate everything that you do, sacrifices you guys make for your families, things you guys have to go through, the lives you're losing. I'm with you, brother. So thank you, sir, for what you're doing through all of this, regardless of what your take is about COVID. Everybody knows my opinion on it. It's a very real thing, and Javier is right there with it. And he's out there with the people who are infected with it, and he's out there working with them, and then he has to go home to his family, which puts them at risk for it. So he is on the front lines with it. So regardless of whichever way you lean, thank you, Javier. Appreciate it. We get into Rams. We get into Cardinals. Monday Night Football playoff game. I don't like Monday Night Football playoff game because this team, and hopefully I haven't really looked at the, so this would be, let me look at, this is the 4-5 game, right? Or is this the 3-6? Which one is this? Let me look it up real quick. Give me a second. Bear with me. Yes, this is the 4-5 game. And you've got the Rams and Cardinals. Now, provided that the 2 and 3 seed win, the winner of this game will have to go to Lambeau Field. Provided that there's no upsets, the winner of this game will go to Lambeau Field. And I believe, if I'm correct, but let me double check, I believe that was scheduled for a Saturday game. Let me double check, just so I don't speak out of turn. Oh, they haven't announced it yet. I would hope that this is a Sunday game. But at whichever one it is, whoever wins, the Rams or the Cardinals, and I'll tell you who I pick here in just a few minutes. But whoever this is has less time off than the other teams. Has less time to prepare than the other teams. It puts them, look, I get it, it's only one day, it's only one night, but look, they play on Monday night, which puts them back home wherever they're at, whether it's Arizona or LA. If it's LA, they're at home anyway. It's Arizona, it's probably about a 2-hour flight, I would guess. But you don't get home until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. After you celebrate your win, get back home to your hotel or back home to your house or on your flight and back home. It's going to be a late night. So you're probably not practicing Tuesday. Tuesday is now your off day instead of Monday. And then Wednesday, you got to get back into it and start preparing. And it's less time for you to get ready for the game on Sunday. If it is on Sunday. If it's Saturday, that's even worse. And I'll lose my mind. If the Monday night winner has to play on Saturday, I will lose my mind. But in this game, we've got a Rams team that, for whatever reason, just has not been playing well at home as of late. They lost to the 49ers this week. They did beat the Seahawks and the Jaguars prior to that. But they lost to the Titans at home. They played a very tight game with the Lions at home. They lost to the Cardinals at home. Played a very tight game with the Buccaneers at home. And then you got an Arizona Cardinals team that is 8-1 on the road. 8-1 on the road. And this team is probably getting J.J. Watt back for the playoffs. This defense is stacked. I said prior to the season, this is the best team in the NFL. Had them picked at 15-2. Didn't expect Hopkins to go down. Didn't expect Kyler Murray to go down, but they did. Still finished at 11-5. I am going with the Arizona Cardinals on the road in LA. And I expect the Cardinals to do what they did to LA the last time that they showed up into LA. When they played in LA earlier this season, they came in, and I've said it before, they smacked them in the face and they kissed their mom on the lips and called them son and beat them 37-20 in their own house. Now, I'm not going to say 37-20 in this game, but I'm going to say 34-17. It's still a good 17-point victory. This Arizona Cardinals team is the real deal. This Arizona Cardinals team is very good. This Arizona Cardinals team is going to beat is going to beat the Rams. I picked the Arizona Cardinals to go to the Super Bowl preseason. They're going to live to fight at least another day. So by Monday night, Tuesday, when we're talking about this on Tuesday, I have picked the Bengals, the Bills, the Buccaneers, the Cowboys, the Steelers in the upset over the Chiefs, and the Arizona Cardinals to advance. Now, I've done pretty well with my picks all year long. I've done pretty well with my picks. And, I mean, I beat the hell out of Buck, beat the hell out of Torrey in our picks all season long. So much so that they even stopped playing. I made them quit Madden style. So trust me, I may not get them all right, but I bet you I got a majority of them right. And usually my upset picks are where it's at. Nobody believed me when I said that the Cardinals were one of the best teams in the NFL. I said the best team in the NFL. And then they started out that season before Kyler and DeAndre got hurt. And they were 8-1. This team is the real deal. Going to get to a quick break. When we come back, more sports talk, more man hour. We'll get into the comments. Stay with me. 2 minutes. And we are back. Javier, my man, chimes in and says, wow, Colts didn't make it. Damn crazy year. Colts didn't make it because they couldn't beat the 2-14 Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, we talked about it all year. I've never seen parity like I see it now in the NFL. There is not one team that sticks out to me, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? They're going to win the Super Bowl. Not one. Any team has a chance to win any game. There is no dominant team in the NFL this year. I thought the Cardinals were it, and then they got injured. They're healthy again. DeAndre's back. Kyler's back. J.J. Watt's back. They could be that dominant again. We'll see. But I just don't. There's so much parity in the league, and the Colts losing to the Jaguars on a game that they needed to secure a playoff spot sums it all up. Mr. Garcia says, so who you rooting to win the Super Bowl, bro? Look, I picked him at the beginning of the year. I'm sticking with him now. Arizona Cardinals winning the Super Bowl. That's my pick. I always stick with my picks until they're no longer in the hunt. I had Bills versus Cardinals, and I had the Cardinals winning it. Part of that will make Alpha Rob happy. The other part will make him very, very sick to his stomach. Cardinals, Bills, Super Bowl. Cardinals win it all. That's what I had. That's what I'm sticking with. Garcia says, I think Rams can take anyone if they can just jumpstart Van Jefferson and Cam Akers too. You know, Cam Akers is fresh because he's coming off that injury. That's a good take. I mean, I like what you're saying there. It's a big ask from two guys. One, Cam Akers has been hurt all year, so he hasn't been around the team. And Van Jefferson just hasn't had the same chemistry since they brought in OBJ. Just hasn't been the same. I thought he was trending in the right direction, but I think OBJ kind of threw a wrench in that project. Garcia says, Cowgirls got the yams, bro. 49ers with the upset special. The Niners are a better road team than the Cowgirls. Well, the fact that you keep calling them the Cowgirls shows that you're just not a Cowgirls fan and that you're not going to pick the Cowboys no matter what game they're playing in because they're the Cowboys. And I can respect that. I'll never pick the Packers to win an NFC title game, mostly because they prove me right year in and year out. But I'm never going to pick the Packers to win an NFC title game because I hate the damn Packers. Bills will destroy the little guy in the Super Bowl if he makes it. Alpha Rob says it will make him very sick to his stomach if the Bills lose in the Super Bowl again. Alpha Rob, look, again, I'm all about fan bases that have suffered through a lot and deserve to see a winning product. Like I said, I'm a Cubs fan, I'm a Bears fan, I'm a Blackhawks fan. And, I mean, look, the Cubs suffered through 108 years of mediocrity before finally winning a World Series. My entire, I bleed Cubby blue. I love baseball with every fiber of my being. We're going to talk about baseball here in a few minutes, but I feel for fan bases that deserve winners. And Cincinnati Bengals are one of those fan bases. The Buffalo Bills are also one of those fan bases. You guys deserve a winner. I'll be happy for the Buffalo Bills if they win it. Even if my prediction is wrong and the Cardinals lose it or whoever they play in the Super Bowl, I'll be all right with the Buffalo Bills winning. I'll be happy for Alpha Rob. I'll be happy for the Buffalo Bills fan base. It just wasn't my prediction at the beginning of the year, so that's why I'm sticking with my team. R. Garcia says, I think OBJ was a bad move. Hasn't proven to be a bad move. I mean, with the exception of the regression of Von Jefferson, it hasn't proven to be a bad move. OBJ's fitting in that offense very nicely. Him and Matthew Stafford are starting to click. As a matter of fact, if there's any chance for the Rams to beat the Cardinals this week, it's going to be because OBJ has one of those games, and Matthew Stafford just can't miss. That's what's going to allow them to beat the Cardinals. With that defense that the Cardinals have, I just don't see it happening. Same here. Bro, hate the damn Packers, bro. I will hate the Packers till I die. Can't stand the Packers. Got two co-hosts here, Wyatt and Tori, who love the Packers. Buck's wife is a Packers fan. I'm surrounded by all sorts of Packers fans. My neighbor's a Packers fan. I can't. Look, and I respect Aaron Rodgers. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm one of those teams, one of those fans, I should say, that I can absolutely hate a team. I hate the Cardinals with every fiber of my being. I own 29 jerseys from baseball teams. The one team I don't own and will never own, St. Louis Cardinals. But I respect Yadier Molina. I respect Ozzie Smith. Nolan Arenado. I respect those guys, and I'll give them their just due. Aaron Rodgers is top 3 quarterback of all time, and to me, he's number 2, right behind Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers is a phenomenal quarterback. I just hate the Packers. It's the uniform he wears. I can't stand him. Plus, I mean, he's kind of a douche off the field, so there's that too. So, but their tight ends were doing good until OBJ showed up and got less targets on tight end. Look, Higbee yesterday got targeted just fine, and he had a game too. And that touchdown catch that he had was phenomenal. I think that the Rams just have so many options that sometimes it looks like their players are getting less targets because they've got so many weapons. They're a great football team. It just so happens that I think the Cardinals are just a little bit better. I think they drew a bad matchup in the first round. And the Cardinals are going to lose. I'm sorry, the Cardinals are going to win. The Rams are going to lose. The Rams are a very good football team. Very good. So we talked all this football. College football is going on right now. I see that I got the college football national championship playing in the background. Georgia and Alabama are tied at 3. Unless Alabama might have just kicked a field goal. I missed it because I was talking on here. But there's a couple things that I want to talk about. And everybody who watches the show, anybody who knows me personally, knows that I am a die-hard baseball guy. It's my first love. I love this game. I love everything about it. And right now, we have a lockout. Right now, we have no hot stove. We had no winter meetings. We didn't have any of that. And it sucks. And right now, the owners and players aren't even talking. And there's been very little progress made. But I think that they're going to get something on the books by the end of the month, right? You get something on the books by the end of the month. You get progress going, started by early February. And you end this lockout by mid-February. It gives you plenty of time, gives you about 3 weeks to get the players all to report for spring training on time. You know they're all working out. You know they're all stretching out. They're all doing their thing. And I think baseball will start on time. As Alpha Rob comes in the comments, I forgot to ask you, Combs, what you thought about when Rodgers said to Bears fans, "I own you." He wasn't wrong. Aaron Rodgers wasn't wrong when he said, "I own you" to Bears fans. He does. He owns the Bears. The Bears have not been good versus the Green Bay Packers in years. It's truth. The only NFC title game that Aaron Rodgers has won, he beat the Chicago Bears to do it. Aaron Rodgers, like over the last however many years of his career, probably hasn't lost, and I haven't even looked this up, but probably hasn't lost more than 8 games in the 17 years that he's played. Aaron Rodgers absolutely owns the Bears, and if Bears fans don't like it, and if the Bears organization doesn't like it, they need to do something about it. Put a product on the field that can compete with the Green Bay Packers. Put a product on the field that can beat Aaron Rodgers. And we're going to see what they do at GM and at head coach, and hopefully they can figure that out over the next year. Maybe 2. I like what the Bears are doing with the roster-wise. I hope to God they can make the right decision GM and coach-wise. But we get over to baseball, and even though the lockout's going on, I still think they're going to get the spring training to report on time. Still going to have spring training games. I don't think we're going to miss any season games. There's a lot of stuff to talk about there. And at some point here, I hope to get RC Orland back on the show so him and I can just talk some baseball and we can talk some inside stuff. I've got some inside information for you guys. The next time we have RC Orland on the show, we're going to break some news that not a whole lot of people know about. So you guys are going to be around when we have that. Little spoiler alert there. But ESPN today came out with their list of best players at each position not in the Hall of Fame. And I had a bone to pick with them because they picked players that are still active players and not eligible for the Hall of Fame. Their catcher was Yadier Molina. Not even in the Hall of Fame. Well, no shit. He's still playing. The guy played this past season. I believe he said he was going to play one more year. This is going to be his last year this year. No kidding. He's not in the Hall of Fame. You could have said Jorge Posada. That might be the best catcher not in the Hall of Fame. But also in their list is Buster Posey. Still playing, people. Then you get to first base. And they've got Albert Pujols. Still freaking playing. Miguel Cabrera, Joey Votto. Still freaking playing. You could have named Fred McGriff. You could have named Keith Hernandez. You could have named Todd Helton. You could have named Mark McGwire. Hell, Dick Allen. But you named Albert Pujols as the best player to not be in the Hall of Fame at first base. He played this last season. I don't like ESPN. You drive me nuts with this stuff. Like, look, ESPN, if you need a baseball writer, you need somebody who's smart enough to have intelligent conversation with the fans, hit me up. I'll take a job. I'll come work for you. I'm not going to stand behind all the politics that you guys like to throw out there. I'm not going to not call out Rob Manfred for being the worst damn freaking commissioner in the sports history. But I'll come work for you. I'll come have interaction with the fans. I will generate more activity on your site just because I have the name ESPN next to me with your baseball talk than any of your writers do right now, period. Plain and simple. To name players that are still playing as the best players at each position to not be in the Hall of Fame is asinine. And Jeff Passan and Jesse Rogers, who I respect a ton. Look, I listen to Jesse Rogers on the radio all the time. I like Jeff Passan. I like what he does. But this article was just nonsense. Look, they did cite Barry Bonds as one of the 3 outfielders not in the Hall of Fame yet that should be in the Hall of Fame. And they're right. Greatest player of all time, Barry Bonds, should be in the Hall of Fame. But their second outfielder was Mike Trout. In the prime of his career, it drives me absolutely up a wall. It is insane to me that you couldn't have found better content to write. This was just a lazy story, guys. It was a lazy story. Jeff and Jesse, you guys got lazy on this one. And I hope that they hear this somehow. I hope that they see this. I hope they're paying attention to little old me on the Man Hour. I hope maybe this goes viral. Maybe we can get this up there. I'm going to tweet at them afterwards with a clip of this. This was a lazy article. So many more names you could have put of players that aren't current players. I mean, that's just obvious. That's like Captain Obvious. Like, it's the definition of Captain Obvious. The best players not in the Hall of Fame might be current players because they're not eligible for the Hall of Fame. Javier Gonzalez says, Miami Marlins, I'm tired. Jeter must spend money. I think he will. I think it's going to take some time. I think you got to trust the process. Look, Javier, as a Cubs, when the Ricketts took over in 2010, I believe it was, 2009, somewhere around there, they said you're going to have to be patient and trust the process. Then they hired Theo Epstein. And Theo Epstein said, look, we're going to do this the right way. I promise to deliver a World Series, but we're going to have some worse seasons than what we've had yet before we get better. And they did just that. Then 2015, they were really, really good. 2016, they won the World Series. It's going to take some time, Javier. It's going to take some time. He says, I love pitching. Stroman is a beast. I'm a Marlins fan. Stroman is a beast. And he got sent to Chicago. And I'm going to like watching him pitch in a Cubs uniform. I agree with you. Alpha Rob says, you're shocked that they did that? A little bit. Jesse Rogers and Jeff Passan are 2 guys that, like I said, I respect. And I'm just surprised that they got so lazy. I'm surprised that they would write a story and put guys who are current players on as the best players not in the Hall of Fame yet. Now, they do have some other guys. They've got Alex Rodriguez, who has retired and who is eligible to get in the Hall of Fame. And quite frankly, as much of a jerk as that guy is, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Fame baseball player, regardless of the lying, regardless of the steroids. He's a Hall of Fame baseball player. I throw steroids out the window. I'm a Barry Bonds guy. I think Barry Bonds is the greatest player to ever step on a field. So I think A-Rod should be in. But to pick guys who aren't even eligible, like Adrian Beltre, he's not even eligible until 2024. You picked guys like Lou Whitaker, but then for your next in line, you put Robinson Cano, who's he's still active. He was suspended all of last year for steroids, or PEDs or whatever he tested positive for. It was just a lazy article to put Mike Trout, who's still in the prime of his career. It's just, it didn't make sense to me. And I was disappointed in the article because I expected more out of these guys. Two guys who are respected baseball journalists, and that's what they come up with. He says, how Paul O'Neill not in the Hall of Fame? He's a big piece of their dynasty. Paul O'Neill, to me, is a borderline guy. When I think Paul O'Neill, I think of a gritty, hard-nosed player, big part of the Cincinnati Reds' early success in the late 80s, early 90s. I think of him on those Yankee teams that won all those World Series. He finished in the MVP vote a bunch. Hit 359 in 94. He's got a career 288 batting average. He only hit 281 home runs and has less than 1,500 RBIs. And only 2,000, just a little over 2,000 hits. So for me, Paul O'Neill is kind of a... If the fans voted, Paul O'Neill would be in, right? Like if the smart fans voted, I should say. Because if fans voted, everybody'd be in. You'd have stupid players in there that shouldn't be in there. But Paul O'Neill is a tug at your heartstrings, put him in the Hall of Fame. Numbers-wise, he's the Hall of the very, very good. And yes, he was a part of some dynasties. But he wasn't an intricate part of those dynasties. He was a very good complementary piece. And so that's why I don't think that Paul O'Neill is not in the Hall of Fame. That's why I don't put him in there. So for me, I couldn't sustain that argument for you. I understand why you're putting it in there. He's a guy that you really want to see in there. But I wouldn't put him in there. But this guy, Drew, I'm with you, man. Dale Murphy should absolutely, positively be in the Hall of Fame. Absolutely. 398 career home runs. 2,100 career hits. A 46.5 career WAR. The batting average was a little down. But the 398 home runs, I mean, that guy should absolutely be in. Perennial Gold Glove winner. Two-time MVP, something like that. 5-time Gold Glove. 4-time Silver Slugger. His accolades are there. His accolades are absolutely there. I don't know why Dale Murphy never got in. I think the career, 265 batting average really rubs people the wrong way. And I mean, that's lower than Paul O'Neill's 288. But I mean, look, Paul O'Neill won one batting title. He went to 5 All-Star games and he won 5 World Series. But no Gold Gloves, no Silver Sluggers, never won an MVP. And it wasn't never even really close. I think the closest he ever got, he might have been like 5th or 6th on a ballot. So that's why I don't put Paul O'Neill in there. I agree, though, that Dale Murphy should be a Hall of Famer. I would put Dale Murphy in. I do understand where people hesitate with that batting average, though. I really do. To me, you had to at least approach 300 to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, that was always the standard. The standard was always a 300 batting average. So I agree with Dale Murphy. I disagree with Paul O'Neill. Sorry, Alpha Rob. Not that I disagree with you. I understand what you're saying. I just, his numbers to me, I guess when I look at it compared to Dale Murphy's now, other than the home run numbers, I mean, 398 home runs, that's very tough to overlook. But that 266 batting average is tough to overlook too. Paul O'Neill hit 288. Just didn't hit enough home runs. Didn't drive in enough runs. Again, I think he benefited a lot from being a part of a very good lineup. So that's where I'm at with that. But guys, it's that time of the night where I must bid adieu. Been on now for close to 2 hours. I've done my best. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. These solo shows are tough, man. These solo shows are really tough. But you guys make it all that much better. You guys, when you guys come out with your comments and you guys keep me talking and you give me something to feed off of, that really helps me out. So if you have not already, click that like button, click that share, click that subscribe. Tell your friends all about this show. Tell them how much you enjoy it. But until next time, guys, Man Hour Nation, rise up.